Hello, everyone. I hope I'm audible, and I'd like to welcome all of you all to our masterclass today. Firstly, I'd like to thank everyone for taking out the time and attending today's session. My name is Anushka, and I will be your host. Today's session is all about regional creators and content, which are the next big thing. And we have our guest speaker, Barin Mukherjee, co-founder of Digital Refresh Networks, who is joining us alongside Seema Walia, who is the director of scaled businesses at ShareChat and Moj. They will be indulging in a fireside conversation, and post that we will have an open Q&A session where you all can engage with our speakers and ask them all your questions in the control panel on your Zoom chat box. So without much further ado, I'd like to welcome Parin. Thank you for joining us today. And Seema, I'd be happy if you take this ahead and get the ball rolling.
Very delighted to share this, share this masterclass today with a very dear friend of mine, Barin Mukherjee. I would give a detailed, introduction of him in some of my latest slides. But to start with, I'll quickly start. I'll set a context about why we are here to discuss this very interesting topic called regional creators and content, essentially discussing the creator economy that all of us live in today. And we will also, and prior to that, and in between of that, we will also discuss ShareChat and Moj few features in detail. Anushka, can you roll with the slides, please? Okay, so like I said, we will set the context of who we are as ShareChat and Moj platform. We'll talk about Bharat's creator economy and creators and their roles in their shaping up Bharat's digital consumption with Barin. While we are discussing ShareChat and Moj, we will also tell you not only about the platform, but we will also tell you what kind of audience set you get, when you come onto either of the platform. To start with, okay, let's go to the next slide, Anushka. So who we are, a very important thing, and often this question is asked to me in the meetings, that there were already platforms which had the legacy and, which had launched in India, had a sizable audience. What was the need to be there for a platform like ShareChat and Moj? And that's a very interesting question, which I find. To start with, let me give you some numbers. ShareChat and Moj put together today are India's third largest media network. As we are talking today, this 325 million plus number that you see on the screen has already grown by quite an extent. And even if I were to, just go by this number, 325 million is about 180 million on ShareChat and about 160 million on Moj. Why there was a need for a platform like ShareChat and Moj is, I will answer you in one word, and that is vernacular. The way our consumers have today moved, not only in tier 2, 3, 4 towns, but specifically also in metros, all the English speaking audience, the way they have completely and reverently moved towards, consuming the content and transiting in their own vernacular, was the real need for a platform like ShareChat and Moj to emerge in India. And not only emerge and become so strong in such a small span of time, because people today swear by their own language, and their own vernacular is something they really relate to. And that's how we actually, formed up these platforms. There is nothing which is being translated in the language of your choice. The content which is being developed for your language is the original content from the word go. All right, ShareChat is your window to Bharat. When we say ShareChat, there are two words which would come into your mind. One is sharing the content. The other is chatting with your friends. What is happening on ShareChat is that there are 46,000 shares happening every minute. What is happening is that I go to ShareChat, I like a content. It could be it could be a video content, or it could be a static content. It could be as simple as something like wishing good morning to your friends. What I do is my instant reaction or my impulse reaction is to go to that video, click on the first thing, which is your WhatsApp share, and send it to a group of friends. I send it to 10 people. Those 10 people would in turn be sending to 25 and 100 and so on. And that is how, imagine the virality of the content that happens on a platform like ShareChat. You are not only accessing the content directly on the platform, but a viewer is able to access it across. And the minute I'm sending it to WhatsApp, that becomes a viral content depending on the kind of content I'm sharing. It could, like, again, reiterating, it could be a static or it could be a video. We have a deep linking feature with WhatsApp, which enables me to send the content as it is and not like a lame link. It is going as a content which piques the interest for all my viewers. Retention time, if I were to talk to, is about 31 minutes per day on the app. Let's have a look at Moj. Moj, on the other hand, is all about, it's a platform where you want to be, you want to express yourself. And how you express yourself on social media today is in the form of creating videos. Today, when I talk of Moj, I can very proudly say that I'm talking of not less than 700K monetizable creators on Moj. Moj today has become a platform of employability for so many creators across India. I'm not only talking of creators, who are based in metros or even tier 2. I'm talking of creators which are based in tier 3, tier 4. Probably you wouldn't have heard of them, but if you were to look at these markets or the niche where they enjoy the popularity is huge. And at times, these creators enjoy much higher numbers or much higher followerships than the creators or the influencers living even in the metros. Retention span is a healthy 34 minutes. Let's have a look at the audience both platforms have to offer you. All right, who is ShareChat audience? Very interesting. If you were to look at the ShareChat audience, the breakup, look at the tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 breakup. If I were to only take tier 2 and tier 3, it is a huge chunk of the audience that you're catering to. For example, any brand today, it could be as big as an HUL or an Amazon, or it could be a retail brand, it could be a startup, it could be a gaming platform, it could be FMCG, e-commerce. Everybody today wants to enter the growing tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 towns. And that is where this expertise is. This audience a little more mature. They're often the decision makers or the influencers. And look at the kind of cities we are covering. So not only am I covering the top 100 urban cities, but my stronghold in semi-urban cities is extremely strong. Let's look at the Moj audience vis-a-vis this. Now, look at the difference. When I talk Moj, I talk a little more premium audience. I talk a very young audience. So 85% of the audience which you will find on Moj belongs to Gen Zs. Now, why are Gen Zs important to you? Is, even if they are not buying, and they have the purchasing power of their own today, but even if they are not the direct buyers of your product, they are definitely the influencers. They are the ones who are actually influencing the real buyers to go and do the buy. So it's extremely important for you to catch them on Moj. And how you catch them is via creators. The creators that we have on Moj, like I mentioned in my earlier slide, is more than 700K. We use beautiful technologies like Snapchat AI, which, Snapchat lenses and the AI with which we turn out amazing creative videos for you. A very healthy male-female ratio of 70:30 on the Moj audience. Yes, and that was about ShareChat and Moj. I have tried to give you a peek into the kind of numbers and the audience that we have on both the platforms. If you have any questions related to any of the numbers or figures that we have just discussed, feel free to ask me any questions during the Q&A round. And with this, I want to introduce Barin Mukherjee, a very dear friend, like I mentioned. He's a industry stalwart with a year of about has been working in existence Delhi, Bombay, Kolkata, and Bangalore and Indore, if I'm not wrong, Barin. And they have very, very interesting clients. Barin, would you like to take over? Anushka, let's go to the next slide, please. All right, Barin, if I were to, the first question that I have in mind when I'm
Seema, sorry, we cannot hear you. And I think Barin has dropped as well. Barin just got back. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's got to do with the moment we start talking, it just kind of gets heavy.
So, Barin, all of us keep hearing this word creator economy. We often go to all these award shows and we go to these conclaves where everybody is saying that, creator economy is the next big thing and is the next big currency, in fact. So, how relevant do you think this word economy is? Does it need to be part of this word creator economy?
See, I think it started quite some time back, but I think the way it has shaped up, it is nothing short of being an economy in itself. Uh, Brands are now forthcoming and ready to engage with these content creators, which kind of puts an additional seriousness layer over what was already happening. Content creators started out and they were creating their own content and, monetizing it to a certain extent, I would say. But
Right.
with brands showing interest, I think it's kind of compounded over time, because and it truly is an economy in itself. Like I was reading somewhere, it's also called the passion economy, because here every creator gets the opportunity to express himself or herself in a form that he or she is familiar with, and that today becomes at an overall level becomes a very, very big opportunity for brands to look at, partnering and spreading the message. So yes, I mean, more than one ways, it is an economy, and it's an ever, fast growing one.
So, can we say that it is one of the most fast growing and evolving phase that we have seen in this digital era?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I think what has, again, played a very, very important part in India is the fact that, access to high-speed networks have become easier, cheaper. Mobile devices, I mean, we as a country kind of took a right turn into mobile devices as a device of choice. So I think with technology, with data speed, with mobile being my default, device of choice, I think it's kind of compounded year on year. And I think it's going to go even further in the coming years.
So, like we say, it's just started.
Yes, absolutely. It's just started. It's taking shape, if I may say so, because, there are interest points that are coming up. I think subcultures that are evolving. So yes, it's a very interesting space for any content company to kind of, watch, monitor, and then integrate into plans for themselves and the brands that they manage.
And yours is a content solution company. So, you
That's right.
would often be, your clients would be talking about it and your clients would want to be part of this economy. How often
Right.
do you come across, client briefs today which specifically want to talk about the creators and regional creators for that matter?
So I'll tell you, at least 2 out of 3 briefs are talking about how we can look at, engaging with content creators of different kinds.
Right.
Uh, and a very interesting point that you mentioned, which is regional,
Yeah.
and we actually invested in a company called Circus Elephants, and primarily because of the ability to talk local language, right? Because, the way you mentioned Bharat, and, it's very interesting that our credential presentation also has saying that India doesn't talk in English.
Oh, right.
Uh, because we are not a whole, but a sum of parts. Every 500 kilometers, the language, the food, the people, the culture, everything changes in this country. Uh, so I think what the most important point that a local, content creator gets, and I'm giving you the brand's perspective to it, is the relatability. Most brands, if you look at the brands, they have a national face to the brand, right? But how do we contextualize that content to a particular region in India? The local, content creators play a very, very important part in building that relatability. I can have, let's say, and not to take away from their stardom in any way, but we can have, let's say, a very large Bollywood celebrity endorsing the brand at a national level. But there are, not maybe, but there are certain pockets of the country where, the identification with that celebrity is not very high, right? So
very, very well said. And I completely connect with you here, because we often see it on Moj, Barin, when people come to us, let's say from and they want to target a particular Telugu talking audience. They would
right.
often go to, for example, one of our creators called Prashu Baby, who actually enjoy a much higher followers than some of the biggest influencers on board. So
Absolutely.
I understand. I mean, when you say, I think relatability is a magic word here. And today, all the brands and agencies present on this chat, I mean, that is what they would want to associate with.
No, absolutely. See, I'll just give you a very small example, which probably cement the point a lot more. The moment you meet another person and you start talking in a mother tongue, it automatically builds that, that bond. I don't know if you have noticed it, in India, outside of India, if you meet someone, so I am a Bengali, the moment there is a conversation in Bangla that happens, you automatically, kind of connect better. And I think that is the power of the local language in our country. While Hindi and HSM classically has been a belt that advertisers have looked at, but now we have the opportunity to look at multiple, pockets. Every region is different. Even within one state, the dialects are different. So I think it plays a very, very important part in building relatability.
I think you said a very important word here, and that is dialect, and that is, again, one point I really want to emphasize on that, like I say, always, my favorite one is, my top languages are, of course, Hindi is there, but we also have Tamil, Telugu, Malayalam, and Kannada. And there is so much difference when we talk of these 4 South Indian languages that somebody who's, celebrating Pongal in, let's say, Kerala would be looking at that festival with a very different POV who's celebrating it in probably Chennai or Coimbatore or, Madurai or Bangalore for that matter, and that is where that regional affluence or that, that complete diction or that, that language affluence would come in. And that is how we, do it on Mod. So what we do is, even when we are talking to brands for that matter, Barin, we often hear this that, initially there were the days when they used to be worried only about creatives. Now they pay more focus on the languages rather than the creative.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And it's never been this important.
Yes, it is. Cool. So, while we were saying that, the regional influencer ecosystem, Anushka would play a small video for us. This we had made for a client Santur. And just look at the way vernacular played.
మన్ని అందంగా ఉంచడానికి నేను ఏం చేస్తుంటానా అని చెప్పి నా ఆడియన్స్ తరచూ ఆలోచిస్తూ ఉంటారు. కొంతమంది మేకప్ అంటారు, మరి కొందరు రైట్ డైట్ వల్ల అంటారు. మీకు నిజం చెప్పనా, నా కొత్త సంతూర్ సబ్బు ఇదిగో. నిజంగా అన్ని అభినందనలు దక్కాల్సింది నాకు కాదు, నా చర్మ సౌందర్యానికి కారణమైన సంతూర్కి. కాబట్టి ఈ కొత్త సంవత్సరంలో మీ చర్మాన్ని కొత్త.
So if you were to look at this video, which Anushka played for us very nicely, we can actually see that, the creator has actually lent an authenticity to the entire brand. Now, this brand already has very popular faces. It's a well-established brand in the market. But what is happening is when I'm seeing a young face who is probably living in the same region as me, who is speaking the same dialect as me, it just lends it more authenticity. And I think it reaffirms what you just said, that dialect and vernacular have become very important. So So tell me, I mean, overall, how do you see these regional creators actually shaping up Bharat's digital consumption? I mean, do you see that, there is that they are here to stay, and do you see them growing probably over, like you said, there is stardom, but then there is a growing class of regional creators. So how do you see shaping them up over the next few coming years?
So the way I see it, Seema, it is actually about, creating these subcultures. I mean, we have been talking about it way at a national level with multiple brands, that instead, the 18 to 24-year-old male and female, that was the classic way of looking at an audience demographically.
Right.
Now there are 17 subcultures sitting within that 18 to 24, and I think content, the way content creators work, it helps us understand the growing subcultures. Like today, if I were to tell you, of course, apart from the larger clusters, maybe of dance and, singing and entertainment at large, there are very, very strong subcultures that are coming up, and content creators are driving that completely. Like, if 5 years back, if I were to tell you that I want to meet 18 to 24-year-old women who are, looking at with a very, very high interest in fashion designing, the appropriateness with which you could touch that audience would have been slightly different. Today, there are content creators who are giving you fashion tips, tricks, etc. And it's a fairly matured one, and they are driving conversations. See, what we also have to always understand is that every content creator, while they are creating a certain amount of content, there are people who are following them for that.
True,
right?
very
It's more democratizing the entire celebrity word, if I were to say, where as an individual, I have multiple interests. And, it is not possible for, one creator to kind of give me the solutions or, inputs on everything. So for dance, I follow someone. For maybe culinary things, I follow someone else. So I think it is shaping the consumption, the content consumption of the country. And I believe that going forward, it is going to get evolve into a little more matured space, because it's new and it's building and it's still evolving. I believe that it's kind of taking shape. So it is definitely, it has a very, very strong journey forward, if you ask me.
Very right. I mean, and I think, Barin, I'm just taking from, where you said that not only are these creators regional and they know their vernacular and the diction very well, but they're also commanding certain niches. Like, for example, somebody might be extremely good in dancing while the other person is good in, let's say, humor. And that is a channel that they're actually using to reach their kind of audience.
Absolutely.
And I think, what youth really wants today and they click with is, probably following the person with the same passion point. And
Absolutely.
added to that, the advantage of a vernacular, I really think you have a jackpot there.
Nini, 200% with you, because again, the point probably we are kind of repeating itself, but that's the truth. I think relatability plays a very, very, even if I'm a dancer, I am probably representing styles which are, let's say a contemporary and all of that. But I also, being in a certain part of the country, I understand that culture better. And I understand that dance a lot better. So relatability, of course, plays a very, very important role in the overall mix.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, that's a very interesting question. I wanted to ask you this. What opportunity does Bharat or the young India audience? So there is an audience which is wanting to see those regional creators. But if I were to look at it from a pure play creators, point of view, what kind of monetization perspectives are we offering them? Do Because I clearly see, Bharat being there. I see young India audience being there, and they're consuming the content which these creators are making. But somewhere, is it leading to a monetization channel for these creators?
No, it has to. I think that's where I believe, two things will play a part. One is the authenticity and how true the creator is to that particular kind of content, because everything requires a certain following to be able to be monetizable, right? So I think it will depend on two factors. One is the authenticity of the content creator. And the second part that I believe is brands coming in. Automatically there creates an opportunity to monetize content. Because I think for the largest period, brands were looking at television, then they moved to digital, more from a performance orientation. And now for the last 3 to 4 years, we are talking content everywhere, content and community, right? That's what is going to drive commerce at the end of the day. So I think I would want to make 2 points. One lens is, as long as the creator is authentic about the kind of content that he or she is putting out, and then there is a following, there will be opportunities to monetize. The second part is brands coming in and looking at writing this for their reach, engagement, and building these conversations. That will also trigger monetization well for these content creators. So that's how I see it, for the young India.
So, Barin, we have few creators today on the chat, and and brands too. Apart from authenticity, is there any other pointer or a message which you want to send across to the creator community, which can improve their chances of being more monetizable, viable?
I think authenticity would be my first advice, because unless you are authentic or you are genuine in what you do, it kind of comes out, right? So
also knowing their audience.
Yeah, also of course. So authenticity, I would say, is one of my points. The second point would be, I think, you need to kind of stay differentiated, from a content creation perspective, because there are, of course, so if I look at it from, if I imagine myself as a content creator, and let's say I'm good with humor, right? There are 150 other people who are also good in humor. So within that ecosystem, how do I stay differentiated? How is my humor different? That I think, and it's almost like a sub point of my first point, that as long as I'm authentic, Barin is funny because, and there is a different reason for it. I think it delivers on both pointers of staying differentiated as well as being authentic. And I think we are a country of 140 billion people with, with 77% mobile penetration.
True.
So I don't think following is going to be a challenge.
True. I think as long as you are delivering right,
Sorry,
you said
1.4 billion.
Sorry. As long as, one is delivering authentic, unique, and fresh content, genuinely, I don't see a problem of the followers happening.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's how I see it.
Anushka, let's take it forward. So yeah, I mean, let's authenticity, freshness, content. We are talking so much about it. The potential for innovation is immense across platforms. And if I were to talk of our platform, we do a lot. We can actually gamify the campaigns. We can do something as unique as interactive web cards. We do WhatsApp shares. We do instant pages, branded likes, and so on. Anushka, let's take it forward. Moj, in fact, if I were to talk about actually, and this was a portion wherein we were talking about, is Moj is that first short video platform to actually deliver Dolby Vision. And why I want to highlight this fact is, when often we talk about user-generated content on any of the platform, we talk about the quality of the content which is coming up and the look and the feel of the channel. Not today, Moj is the single most platform which is enabling and empowering these creators or the users to create videos in absolute supreme quality with dazzling colors, sharp contrast, and greater details. So it is not only helping our creators, but it is also helping our advertisers to actually be seen in this beautiful ambience of the platform and deliver a more immersive experience. Let's go forward. That's the Dolby Vision video for you. Yes, this is, Barin, which is actually bringing us to conversations about the clients that you are handling. And, one reason I want to ask you this question is that there are a lot of startups and brands today, on the chat who would want to connect with you and, actually understand the kind of work you are doing with various brands when it comes to a language first approach. So, if it would be great if you could, give us certain examples of a brand wherein you have been doing this kind of approach. It could be the vernacular first or the regional creator approach, which you have done for them.
So I think, Jiva, most of the brands that we are looking at, even if they are national brands, they are looking at a language first approach. So
Right.
while there could be, there are different sets of communication that are tied to a single thread, because as a brand, I think there is a protocol or a code that, it has to follow. But I think the renders are completely language first. And like I was telling you, so let me give you an example of two very, very different brands. So we manage Mahindra Farming as a Service. So they have this business, which is, a vertical that runs in parallel with the farm equipment sector, where we are trying to connect with farmers, and like typically when you search on Google and you see the farmer, that's not the farmer that we are talking about. These guys are tech savvy farmers. They are probably the second generation, well educated, well informed, device equipped kind of farmers that we are talking about. So affluence, sorry?
A very evolved set of farmers we are talking.
Absolutely, absolutely. But where the familiarity is in that language, in the local language, right? They are not very, very conversant with English. In certain parts of India, they are not even, conversant with Hindi. While Bollywood has had an impact, but I think there are limitations still. So a language first is the only approach to connect for a brand like this, because if you are, and the brand is committed to help them better their per yield income, per acre yield and income therefore. So the communication that we do, the kind of seeds, the kind of farming that happens across the country is broken into the year, right? There are different seasons for different crops. And add to that the different languages. So we've created a construct for them where in a fun, engaging manner, we are creating content in Punjabi, in Bangla, in Tamil, in Telugu, in Malayali, and kind of reaching out to farmers in these regions. So that's one brand again, which is very, very different. And we were working with Imami. For them, we have worked with Moj again to UP, Bihar, Jharkhand, and Bengal as the key markets. We had a language first approach where we worked with you guys on the studio ad format, kind of creating content in Bangla for the Bengali audience, right? So it's the same central thematic brand communication that now gets rendered efficacy and the kind of numbers that we have are very, very impressive. And that's, I believe, this, I believe, is the only way forward. It's a strong statement, but I genuinely believe that language first communication is the way to go forward.
So, Barin, for example, if I'm a brand, if I were to approach you, would you also tell us how DRN works? I mean, do you have a specific, creators team who work with the brands, and then there is another team which actually works on other creatives?
No, so we have a team which is the creative team that works on multiple brands in terms of the insights. But what we have created over the years is a very strong network with local partners.
Right.
So, if you believe that for your brand, let's say MP Chhattisgarh is a very, very strong market, or a Karnataka is a very strong market, then what we do is we take the central brand communication and work with these partners along with our creative team to start seeing them getting rendered with the nuances of the culture. So we have done a lot of films for Big Bazaar, for Mahindra, for Imami, where we have actually the central creative idea is done by us, but we have worked with local partners to be able to take that and build something which is extremely localized.
So safe to say that as a brand, as a national brand, if I'm approaching you, not only am I getting a national idea or a creative from you, but I'm also getting, I'm also reaching out to the hinterland, and I'm getting that
Absolutely.
regional, local flavor of, it could be, the difference could be, as it could be like a Ranchi versus any other part of Bihar. So,
yes.
Okay, great.
And your platform also, and otherwise now you can almost get into pin code level targeting. So I think what also helps is not only am I creating the content that is extremely local, but I also have enough and more media vehicles to sharply target and make that content reach the right set of guys and minimizes my spillover. So I think that is a far more efficient way of going about creating communication and deploying it.
So Barin, and as my last question, I just want to ask you something that, in our initial conversation, we were talking about, giving those tips of, let's say, authenticity or knowing your audience to the creators. But when it comes to brands and, especially, bigger brands, it is still easier, because they have those kind of resources. But when it comes to startups, and there are often startups who want to, probably spread out in the 500 kilometers of a particular region, or if they want to get into certain pockets. For example, I don't want to sell my product in Mumbai, but I want to sell it in Nasik and 500 kilometers of Nasik. So when they are approaching you, or they are, actually talking about setting up a campaign with regional creators. So would you want to give some tips to the brands which are approaching you or planning a campaign on their own as to how do they set about selecting those creators or setting a campaign?
No, I think selection, if I understand your question right, selection is a function of the communication, so what kind of content creators do I kind of select and make them a part of my campaign will of course be driven by my main creative, right? But like you said, if there are brands who are looking at, so we have a specialized language team, right, who looks at brands only of this scale. And we have worked with Moj in certain cases we have created the content and worked with Moj as a platform partner. We've done both, but the idea is that you have to, for such a strong, strongly defined market. If you want to talk to a Nasik and that area, that geography, I think Marathi is the language. I mean, I don't think it's a doubt in anybody's head today that, मैं वहाँ हिंदी बोल के भी निकल जाऊंगा. I don't think that that's even a question today. So that's a good thing for us. But yeah, I mean, coming back to your question, I think depending on what the brand is, what is the product, and what are they trying to solve for the consumer, basis which we define our main communication, a central communication. I think adapting that to a local region, choosing the right set of influencers or content creators, is a function of the creative idea.
Right. So, very essentially, we also work in a very similar manner on ShareChat and Moj. And this is what I want to share with all the audience today. It could be any brand, like I said, it could be a brand with a pan-India presence, or it could be a brand which wants to go hyper-local and only advertise into certain pockets. Depending on the kind of KPIs you have, we have a very strong creators team, which is part of our ecosystem, and when you come to us with a certain message or a comm that you want to approach, or you want to establish your brand with, we actually, depending on your KPIs, we do the entire work with this creator community, like right from 0 to 100, and we deliver the end product to you. We are very extremely, on Moj, when we are drafting these kind of campaigns, we are extremely careful about what your end message is and what your end goal is. And that is how, we are working day in, day out to create impactful vernacular content on Moj for you. Going to the next slide, when we talk about, the regional creators community or any kind of user-generated content, one question which is again often in everybody's mind is, what about the brand safety? I mean, does user-generated content, does it mean that my brand could be placed against anything which might not be very appealing to the senses, or it could be a little objectionable? So when we talk of both ShareChat and Moj platform, we are extremely careful about creating a brand safe environment, and not only via our machine learning, which is the AI, but also via manual intervention. So just to give you a gist and explain in simpler terms, we look at the content with the lens of not safe for work from 0 to 1. And any video which is above 0.5 on this metric, once it has been scanned via AI, is immediately sent for a manual reviewing. We have well-established quality control teams which actually review the entire material and release video or ban it from consumption depending on the percentage that they sit in. More important than that, even after the videos or the content is released on the platform, we are extremely careful never to place any ad, any brand message or a brand ad in the neighborhood of content which is 0.5 and above. If you have any, if you come across any content or video which is objectionable and not appealing to the senses, you can immediately raise an alarm and we remove it within 24 hours of your message to us. With this, Anushka will be coming to an end of the presentation. And, in the end, I would want to talk about the ad credits offer that we run. To access this, it's a very, very simple mechanism. You have to go to our ShareChat business page. You have to enroll yourself to become a self-serve partner with us. The minute you enroll, you're given a wallet ID, and we would add 500 rupees as a welcome token from our end. You have to become a regular advertiser with us, and the minute you start recharging your wallet with 10,000 rupees and more credits, you would not only get the ad credits, but you also get creative credits along with it. There is a page of terms and condition which you can access when you go to the business page. But yes, I mean, you do get 100% ad credits when you come and be partner with us on the self-serve business platform. Anushka, that's all from my and Barin's end today.
No, I guess bandwidth issue and the reins go hand in hand.
Yes.
So I'd just like to extend a big thank you to you and Barin for taking out time today for this session. It was, in fact, a very informative and interesting session because I think as a platform, we've never really spoken this much or in detail in such depth on regional creators, and that's what our platforms are all about. Given the current digital consumption in India. We jump into our Q&A session. And the first question we have is from Sunny Singhal, who's a part of our audience. And he runs a real estate agency, and he wants to know how can he run ads, which ad campaign can he run on ShareChat in order to generate more leads for his real estate business?
Well, Sunny, thank you for attending the chat today. And what we can do is, let me help you with two things. One, you can send in your phone number and email ID on the email which is there on the screen, self-serve at ShareChat. My team would surely reach out to you. Also, what you can do is run a lead gen campaign with us on the platform. We already have, quite an exhaustive list of real estate clients which are there on the platform. My team would actually aptly guide you towards the kind of bidding and the campaigns that you should be doing on the platform, and we'll take it from there.
Thanks, Seema. We have another question from Mr. Amit. He has a sports store which is up in the north in tier 2. And they're planning to open another branch in the south, and they are planning to take the creator out. So
Wow.
basically, how can ShareChat and Moj help in this regard is what the question is, and what should they exactly do if you could help them with that?
Amit, first of all, accept my congratulations. I mean, I think that's amazing, the kind of work you are doing. I mean, if you are going from north to south, I'm imagining your business is really expanding, and I wish you success for that. Secondly, you would be very happy to know that when it comes to numbers and our presence, south is one market where we have fantastic numbers, not only in terms of our MAUs and DAUs, but also in terms of the kind of regional creators we have. I mean, you could talk of any language. It could be Kannada, it could be Malayalam, it could be Tamil, Telugu. We have very specific regional creators with the absolute pure dialect that you would need. So depending on the region that you are launching your sports good in, we can help you creating a HTC or an influencer activation campaign for you, depending on the kind of the days you want to campaigns run in. You can do a roadblock with us in specific regions. We can do region-wise, vernacular-wise campaigns for you. And I really urge you, Amit, to just write in a mail to me on the email ID given, mention your phone number, and for sure, we will reach out to you in less than 24 hours.
Wow. Great. We have a question. Is there any minimum ad spend per day?
I would not call it a minimum ad spend there. I mean, there is no minimum max limit as such. I mean, there would be certain criteria which are available on the site, but I don't know who has asked me this question and what category are you talking of, but let me just tell you what works on not only my platform, but any platform. So, every platform, every category has a specific threshold, on which you get an optimum result. So depending on, it could be, you could be a retail e-com client, or you could be a real estate client, or an ed tech, or it could be like Amit had, the sports store. Depending on what category, what KPIs, and what audience do you want to reach out, generally the spends should be, decided. Do not decide it with, as to what is the entry level on a platform. My entry level could be 1,000 rupees. But for all that, you might be playing in a category which is, which has very different kind of players. So always have a chat with our team, the sales team, and decide what would be that optimum level of investment which would give you the desired result. So please, I mean, whosoever has asked this question, please do get in touch with us on the email ID. And let us give you that system learning and the recommendation of what should be your investments on the channel to start with.
We've got another question related to budgets, but I'll get to that after this one. This is from Shreya Pillai. If we are to penetrate into the rural population for a security-related brand, how can the platform help, number one? And how good is the consumption of the content in such regions?
Extremely good. I mean, if you were to hear to not only me, because, you know, I am obviously talking from ShareChat and Moj Lens, but if you have listened to the entire conversation of what Barin had to say, you really need to, you know, actually understand that these tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 towns have two top qualities. One, their attachment towards vernacular and the content consumption in that language. And second is the growing purchasing power today. You know, somebody sitting in a tier 3, tier 4 town is always going through the content and consuming it even more if they are able to relate it. I might be a Bhojpuri speaking audience, and if I'm looking at the content in my language, I will not only relate and connect, but also end up consuming it more. And the more interesting, you know, your message has to go out in first 3 to 4 seconds. The content has to be interesting enough. And do not even worry about, you know, the purchasing power these towns have, because they have amazing purchasing power. You know, we actually did a Moj study, and it is available online. I mean, if you were to look at it, you would figure out how these towns, you know, you call them rural towns, but we call them evolving tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 markets. How these evolving markets are today actually deciding, let digital world decide their maximum, you know, purchasing power or the decision making of anything. So if you are a security, you said security company, right? So if you're a security company, please approach our sales and the creative team. We will ensure that your message goes out to the audience in less than 3 to 4 seconds and the right set of audience.
Baran, would you like to add anything to that?
No, I think it's, I mean, we've spoken about it during our chat, that it is extremely important to look at that, you know, from a local audience perspective. So I think Seema has covered pretty much. It is the way to look at it. Yeah. Let me be honest. I think if we were having this conversation 5 years back, probably an adaptation would have worked. But I think if you as a brand want to communicate and like Seema said, in fact, on the contrary, I believe that, you know, the aspiration of the audience in a tier 2, today as a Bombay guy or a Delhi guy, you can just walk into a Zara store, right? But the access to Zara is pretty limited to a guy sitting in, and with D2C now enabled in most cases. You know, I think it was never about the purchasing power. They always had the money to buy, but digital has given that access. So if you start, but you know, and the moment you start talking in a local language, you are no more a brand that's alienating me or intimidating me, right? I feel that you understand my language and therefore understand me better. So I think that's the only way to go, if you ask me.
And I think we've got time for the last question, which is again from an anonymous attendee. They are a small hair oil brand. And what are the budgets the brand should set aside for influencers to use influencers for their campaign? So what kind of budgets should they, you know, look at working around?
Thank you for attending the session. And, you know, I must tell you something. We have a amazing community, you know, of the industry that you are part of already as, you know, on our platform, both ShareChat and Monch. We do immense work with all the advertisers from South, specifically from Mysore when it comes to the hair oil category. We can not only run, you know, the vanilla advertising, but also, like I said, you know, those regional creator specific campaigns. It could start, again, my answer to that budget would be, Anushka, you know, please do not go by a set budget Go by what your KPIs and what your deliveries are. Go by what the need of and the requirement of your brand comms could be. There are cases wherein other brands might need to put in some 30, 50, 40 lakhs, but could be your message reaches out to audience in just 10 lakhs or 15 lakhs, or it could be, a vice versa case. So let us understand your KPI. Let's understand what you want to and who you want to reach out to. Once we understand that, I think that would be the time that we can sit down on the table and discuss budgets. Anushka, do we have a time for one last question? Because there's a very interesting question for only Barin in the end.
Oh, yeah, sure. You may have missed it.
I would love Barin to take that up.
Yes, sir, my question is more about youth on ShareChat. Is it relevant for real estate, right? That one?
Question for Barin is, how's the digital language changing with regards to brands and influencer association?
Hi. Sorry, I kind of missed the first part. Could you please repeat the question?
Barin, this is an anonymous attendee and he's asking you, how's the digital language changing with regards to brands and influencer association?
Again, I would say we've already discussed it, but if you ask me, just to reiterate, I think brands are talking multilingual now. In fact, the content, if you see every piece of content that you see coming on OTT now comes in 5 different languages, right? That's the biggest proof of the consumption that is happening in local languages, right? Entire shows are being done in dubbed in different languages. And I think brands have been very, very receptive to this, because at the end of the day, it is the efficacy of the money that you put on to creating communication and deploying communication that actually builds the confidence further. So I think brands are looking at languages. In fact, in the last conversation, I said that is probably the only way to go. Because if you are expecting to create, of course, in certain categories, probably it works better than the others. But if you are thinking that one piece of communication or, that is it, and that will connect with the entire country's population, I don't think that's the case. You have to look at talking in the local language, and therefore work with content creators within that region to be able to render the communication in a manner which is more relatable to the local audience. So I think it's a must have. It's no more a good to have. That's how I see it.
Absolutely rightly said. I mean, from a option, it has moved to a requirement today.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think most brands are doing it. I don't think anyone has missed out on that. Yes, some have been a little cautious. And, like Seema, you took through the concerns that brands have. How am I coming across? But I think 99% of the brands are at least open to having this conversation today because they understand the power of it. So,
right. Anushka, over to you.
Awesome. So with that, we come to the end of our masterclass. And I'd really like to thank Barin and Seema for their time. Barin, Seema, any parting thoughts before we end the meeting?
No, I think we got to meet. We've been planning to meet. So it was a very, very nice opportunity to meet like this. So thank you, Seema, for this. And parting thoughts, if you ask me, I would say that, India is not a whole, but a sum of parts. And if you want to be successful as a business, you have to look at it as a sum of parts. And the moment you get into each of these parts, there is an ecosystem of content creators creating content in a language that people relate to. So please don't think India speaks in English or Hindi. It is a sum of parts that make us a whole. That's all from my side. Over to you, Seema.
Thank you, Barina, and +1 to that. And thank you for, setting up a beautiful context, conversation, and a closure to the session today. Thank you once again for coming and joining us.
Thank you. See you. Thank you, everyone. Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
See you.
Bye.